Bulgaria, Romania, or India. Ganesh had come back from his trip and was talking to Maharashtra about the Roma people who live in many countries of Eastern Europe. He met Jordana, who works as a nurse in Bulgaria. This is what she has to say about Roma people. Being a nurse, you can't refuse to look after some people, but these Roma people are very dirty. Even when something small happens to anyone in their family, all the family and even the neighbors just march to our hospital. And once they are in the hospital, over and spite on the wall. They have no patience and they just start pestering our doctors, and when they are just hanging out like that, anyway they look so aggressive. After all, these dark-skinned people don't look like us. They have everyone else in the country, and we all know they are thieves. I have had afford the hospital fees, but when they are ill, they just rush to hospital at the cost of good Bulgarians who pay their taxes. That sounds familiar, said Maheshwata. Ganesh went on to talk about Modruani, a Romani who lives in Romania. When she was 18 years old, she went to the hospital to give birth to her first hospital. Nobody bothered to come and take care of her. Finally, the sweeper who the scene and said, Here we have another criminal. Talking about how the Roma people are treated in public hospitals, she says, these doctors keep us waiting outside their cabins. On one occasion, one doctor asked me to take a bath if I needed to be examined. Of course, I smelled. During the pregnancy, I ate from the garbage containers because I was so hungry all the time. My husband had left me. I had 2 children and I was pregnant with the third. The social worker refused my request for food assistance. My neighbor helped me to deliver the baby. I often feel it is better not to visit these hospitals. Maheshwata heard him out and said, Ganesh, why do you have to travel halfway across the world to find this out? This is not a story about Romania and Bulgaria or about the Roma people. This is as much a story about our own country and about our people who are branded as criminals by your system. Do you think Mahashwashta is right? Do you know of some community in your area that is treated like the Romas? Have you heard people say things similar to what Yordanaka or Mondrosini say here? If yes, try to think of what the story would sound like if you heard it from the other side. Do you think the Bulgarian government should try to ensure that the Roma people dress and behave like other people from Bulgaria? Reached a peace treaty after which the latter suspended their armed struggle. In Yugoslavia, the story did not have a happy ending. Political competition along religious ending ethnic lines to the disintegration of Yugoslavia into 6 independent countries. Such examples lead some people to conclude that political and social divisions must not be allowed to mix. They think that it would be best if there are no social divisions in my country. If social divisions do exist in a country, they must never be expressed in politics. At the same time, every expression of social divisions in politics does not lead to such distress. We have already seen that social divisions of one kind or another exist in most countries of the world. Wherever they exist, these divisions are reflected in politics. In a democracy, it is not only natural that political parties would talk about these divisions, make different promises to different communities, look after due representation of various communities, and make policies to redress the grievances of the disadvantaged communities. Social divisions affect voting in most countries. People from one country tend to prefer some party more than others. In many countries, there are parties that focus only on one community. Yet all this does not lead to disintegration of the country. 3 determinants. 3 factors are crucial in deciding the outcome of politics of social divisions. First of all, the outcome depends on how people perceive their identities. If people see their identities in singular and exclusive terms, it becomes very difficult to accommodate. As long as people in Northern Ireland saw themselves as only Catholic or Protestant, their differences were difficult to reconcile. It is much easier if the pupils see that their identities are multiple and are complementary with the national identity. A majority of Belgians now feel that they are as much Belgian as they are Dutch or German speaking. This helps them to stay together. This is how most people in our country see their identity. They think of themselves as Indian as well as belonging to a state or a language group or a social or religious community. Second, it depends on how political leaders raise the demands of any community. It is easier to accommodate demands that are within the constitutional framework and are not at the cost of another community. The demand for only Sinhala was at the cost of the interest and identity of the Tamil community in Sri Lanka. In Yugoslavia, the leaders of different ethnic communities presented their demands in such a way that these could not be accommodated within a single country. Third, it depends on how the government regards to demands of different groups. As we saw in the examples of Belgium and Sri Lanka, if the rulers are willing to share power and accommodate the reasonable demands of minority community, social divisions become less threatening for the country. But if they try to suppress such a demand in the name of national unity, the end result is often quite the opposite. Such attempts at forced integration often sow the seeds of distinction. Thus, the assertion of social diversities in a country need not be seen as a source of danger. In a democracy, political expression of social divisions is very normal and can be healthy. This allows various disadvantaged and marginal social groups to express their grievances and get the government to attend to these. expression of various kinds of social divisions in politics often results in their cancelling one another out and thus reducing their intensity. This leads to strengthening of a democracy. But a positive attitude towards diversity and a willingness to accommodate it do not come about easily. People who feel marginalized, deprived, and discriminated have to fight against the injustices. Such a fight often takes the democratic path, voicing their demands in a peaceful and constitutional manner and seeking a fair position through elections. Sometimes social differences can take the form of unacceptable level of social inequality and injustice. The struggle against such inequalities sometimes takes the path of violence and defiance of state power. However, history shows that democracy is the best way to fight for recognition and also to accommodate diversity. Draw or collect some images of social divisions in different aspects of life. Can you think of some examples of social division or discrimination in the field of sports? So you are saying that too many small divisions are better than a single big division. Are you also saying that politics is a force of unity?
Social studies, meaning, significance and scope. Introduction. Every individual is a part of community and it is not merely a history or geography or a civics or an economics that matters, but rather the man himself who influences and is influenced by his history, his geography, his civics or economics and his community. The subject of social studies, which deals directly with man and society in which he lives, carries special responsibility of preparing young children to become well informed, constructive participants in society and capable of developing healthy social relationships. The dawn of independence in the year 1947 opened a new chapter in our history by adopting a new constitution declaring us a sovereign, secular, socialist, democratic republic. We have entered a new era. We have decided to rebuild our society on a pattern that guarantees social justice to all members and groups. Likewise, we have also ventured to reconstruct our national economy on a sound foundation. In the international field, we have decided to develop friendship with all and to promote world peace. An elementary course in social studies should help lay down in every child sound foundations of good democratic citizenship, which implies an all-round individual growth towards collective progress in a welfare state. This then demands a functional approach which emphasizes the development of certain basic understandings certain essential skills, both intellectual and social, and certain desirable attitudes for improved social living in every child that studies the subject. Although the subject of social studies includes much of the subject matter of history, geography, civics, and economics, it does not limit itself to the fields formally covered by these formal disciplines, nor does it attempt to give a regular sequence of lessons in them. Defining social studies. The term social studies is of recent origin. Its widespread use was started in 1916 in the USA. Its origin in India can be traced back with the formulation of the basic system of education in 1937. The term social studies has been defined differently by different commissions, committees, and writers. Some definitions are as follows. The curriculum for the 10-year school, a framework published by NCERT in 1976, points out environmental studies will include both natural and social environments in classes first and second. It would be more appropriate to use the term social studies rather than social science at the primary stage, since it represents a broad and composite instructional area. James Hamming, in teaching of social studies in secondary schools, considers social studies a study of relations and interrelations, historical, geographical, and social. James High has observed in teaching secondary social studies, most simply stated, the social studies are the school mirror of the scholarly findings of the social sciences. Such data as social scientists may gather is integrated and simplified to appropriate levels of expression for children in all the grades. John V. Michaelis states in Social Studies for Children in Democracy, the social studies are concerned with man and his social and physical environment. They deal with human relationships. Peter H. Martola has observed in social studies, strategies, theory and practice. It is more accurate to think of social studies as an applied field which attempts to fuse scientific knowledge with ethical, philosophical, religious and social considerations which arise in the process of decision making practiced by citizens. In its publication, Social Studies for Schools, the Social Studies Committee of Schools Board, Victoria, USA, has given the true concept of the subject in these words. What we study in social studies is the life of a man in some particular place at some particular time. We therefore use every possible subject to help us understand his problem and how he deals with them. The main aim is to give a better understanding of present problems. We try to give our future citizens some understanding of the development of mankind. We attempt to trace with the children the fascinating story of how man has developed through the ages, of how man has studied to use the control his environment and how his life has been influenced by this, how our institutions have grown out of the past and should therefore be respected, and how they have undergone many changes to meet changing needs and must undergo many more from time to time. Man's struggle with his environment yesterday and today, man's use or misuses of his powers, resources, his development, the social unity of civilization. These are the main themes of social studies. We are trying to break the habit of putting knowledge into watertight compartments labeled history, geography, civics, economics, etc. We are also trying to train children in the habits of thinking clearly. To be able to use all the knowledge at their command to solve problems and to be able to find the necessary information. In the words of J.F. Forrester, social studies, as the very name of suggests, is the study of society, and its chief aim is to help pupils to understand the world in which they have to live and how to it came to be, so that they may become responsible citizens. It aims at promoting critical thinking and a readiness for social change, creating a disposition for acting on behalf of the general welfare, at an appreciation of other cultures, and a realization of the interdependence of men and of nation and nation. The Secondary Education Commission of the National Education Association USA has defined social studies in these words. Social studies are understood to be those whose subject matter relates directly to the organization and development of human society and to man as a member of social group. Mr. M.P. Mufat is of opinion that a person may be learned in chemistry or mathematics. He may be skilled technician, but if he is short-sighted in his attitude to his fellow men, he is unsocial and perhaps ill-adjusted in many other ways. The art of living is a fine art to which social studies contributes understanding. The framers of the report of Secondary Education Commission in India, realizing the novelty of the subject, have clearly stated social studies as a term is comparatively new in Indian education. It is meant to cover the ground traditionally associated with history, geography, economics, civics, etc. This whole group for studies has therefore to be viewed as a compact whole. Those object is to adjust the students to their social environment, which includes the family, community, state and nation, so that they may be able to understand how society has come to its present form. And NCERT publication entitled National Curriculum for Elementary and Secondary Education has used the term social studies. It is observed social sciences is perhaps the singular circular area which can prove to be the most effective tool for providing education in the context of all the core components indicated in the NPE, National Policy on Education, 1986. The Common Core envisaged by the NPE comprises history of India's freedom movement, constitutional obligations, values such as India's common heritage, egalitarianism, democracy, secularism, equality of sexes, protection of environment, small family norms, etc. Subject matter of social studies. Social studies deals with man, his relations with other men, and his environment. It therefore draws its contents from several social sciences to help us understand the problems of man and how he deals with them. The main themes of social studies are man's struggle with environment yesterday and today, man's use or misuse of his powers and resources, his development and the essential unity of civilization. The contents of social studies are drawn from several social sciences but are not determined by the discipline of any one of these. Social studies is meant to cover the ground traditionally associated with history, geography, economics, civics, etc. If the teaching of these subjects only imparts miscellaneous and unrelated information and does not throw any light on it or provide insight into social conditions and problems or create the desire to improve the existing state of things. Their educative significance will be negligible. The whole group of studies has therefore to be viewed as a compact whole whose object is to adjust the students to their social environment. Social studies includes the study of relationships and interrelationships, historical, geographical and social, so as to provide to the young person with the basics of public knowledge and orientation of study. His personality denied the means of integration, his interests left unstated and his energies untapped. It includes matter which reveals to the child where he is in time, space and society. Social studies traces for the children the fascinating story of how man has developed through the ages, how his life has been influenced by the environment, how he himself has influenced the environment, how our institutions have grown out of the past. Now man has struggled with his environment in the past, how he is struggling today. Man's use or misuse of his powers and resources, and above all essential unity of civilization. Social studies aims at breaking the habit of putting knowledge into watertight compartments labeled history, geography, civics, economics, etc. Social studies includes that material which is conducive to the development of a well-informed, intelligent person who is capable of comprehending properly the current problems, is keen to accept responsibilities as a citizen for the welfare of all, and has developed insights, skills, moral qualities which are so essential and desirable in a democratic society. Scope of social studies. The scope of social studies is very vast and wide, and in fact as wide as the world itself and as lengthy as the history of man on this earth. It includes the millions of years prior to recorded history and also the foreseeable future. In the words of John O. Michaels, the breadth of social studies program should provide for a variety of experiences that the child's learning will be well rounded and well balanced. It should also be possible to draw upon other fields of learning so that significant problems can be considered in the light of their ramifications. A narrow compartmentalized program limits social learning. It draws material from all the social sciences relating to the study of human relations, human institutions and human behaviors. In doing so, undue emphasis is not laid on any one subject or part at the cost of another. It is true that the scope is very vast and wide, but this does not mean that the course in social studies is limitless and fathomless ocean and that it knows no ends. Its frontiers have to be encompassed so as to provide an overall integrated outline of minimum essential functional knowledge from various disciplines. Contents of social studies. A study of relationships. Relationships between men and men. Relationship between men and institutions. Relationships between men and earth. And relationship between men and goods. A functional study of natural sciences and arts. Study of the part of chemistry which has helped a lot in the eradication of various diseases. A study of current affairs which make us think about the social structure of the community or the society and the effects of social forces in their making. A study of international affairs for promoting brotherhood of mankind. A study of the actual working of social institutions like the village, panchayat, state, legislatures and parliament, etc. The vastness of the scope of social studies may be explained with the help of a diagram. The Secondary Education Commission has observed it is not often realized that the complaint of overcrowding is largely due to the multiplicity of subjects presented as separate entities without bringing out their organic interrelationship. So in framing the curriculum, an attempt should be made to see whether certain subjects can be grouped in a large, organically related units dealing with certain broad areas of human knowledge and interest. Thus, it is psychologically preferable to present subjects centering around the study of the social environment and human relations under the comprehensive healing of social studies than to each a number of separate subjects like history, geography, civics, and economics in watertight compartments. Social studies as a term is comparatively new in Indian education. It is meant to cover the ground traditionally associated with history, geography, economics, civics, etc. If the teachings of these separate subjects only imparts miscellaneous and unrelated information and does not throw any light on or provide insight to social conditions and problems or create the desire to improve the existing stage of things, their educative significance will be negligible. This whole group of studies has therefore to be viewed as a compact whole whose object is to be adjust the students to their social environment, which includes family, community, state and nation, so that they may be able to understand how society has come to its present from and interrupt intelligently the matrix of social forces and movements in the midst of which they are living. They help the student to discover the explain how this adjustment has taken place in the past and how it is taking place today. Through them, the students should be able to acquire not only the knowledge but the attitudes and values which are essential for successful group living and civic efficiently. They should endeavor to give the students not only a sense of national patriotism and an appreciation of national heritage, but also a keen and lively sense of obvious fact that these are but the formulation of aims which have to be achieved. Their translation into circular terms will require careful thought and patient research. Correct concept of social studies. An analysis of the foregoing paragraphs brings out the following characteristics of social studies. Social studies deals with the interrelations that develop between and among people and those that develop between people and their environment. Social studies is a broad and composite instructional area which draws its contents from different social sciences. Social studies is a compound rather than a mixture where the ingredients lose their identity and something tangible and worthwhile emerges out of the combination. It differs from the teaching of history, geography, civics, economics, etc. in the same sense in which the taste of ice cream differs from that of its ingredients like sugar, cream, milk, etc., tasted in isolation. Social studies aims at enabling the students to adjust to their social environment, which includes the family, community, state, and nation, and in fact the entire humanity. Social studies deals with the art of living. Social studies deals with those areas of curriculum that enable the students to interrupt intelligently the matrix of social forces and movements in the midst of which they are living. Social studies establishes relationships between present, past and future. Social studies integrates the knowledge of all social science and is therefore called coordinated and coordinating. Social studies is the applied branch of social sciences introduced in the school curriculum with a view to developing proper attitudes, sensibilities, and skills in future citizens. The materials of social studies are useful for general education and school level before collegiate education starts so that pupils can learn them with sufficient ease and interest. The contents of social studies are continuously growing and changing with the changing social process, hence its contents will have to be revised periodically. Social studies covers the study of communities at all levels, local, regional, national and international, with a focus on man and his social environment. Social studies stresses contemporary human life and its problems rather than the past history of man. Democracy and diversity. Overview. In the last videos, we saw how power can be distributed to accommodate linguistic and regional diversities. But language and region are not the only features that give a distinct identity to people. Sometimes people also identify themselves and relate with others on the basis of their physical appearance, class, religion, gender, caste, tribe, etc. In this video, we study how democracy responds to social differences, divisions, and inequalities. We begin with an example of public expression of social divisions. We then learn some general lessons about how social differences can take various forms. We then turn to how democratic politics affects and is affected by these social diversities. A story from Mexico Olympics. An important landmark in the history of the civil rights movement in the United States, depict an important landmark in the history. These represent the medal ceremony of the 200 meters race in the 1968 Olympics held at Mexico City. The two men standing with clenched fists, upraised and heads bowed, while the American national anthem was played, are the US athletes Tommy Smith and John Carlos. They are African Americans. They had won the gold and bronze medals respectively. They received their medals wearing black socks and no shoes to represent black poverty. With this gesture, they tried to draw international attention to racial discrimination in the United States. The black gloved and raised clenched fists were meant to symbolize black power. The silver medalist, white Australian athlete Peter Norman, wore a human rights badge on his shirt during the ceremony to show his support to the two Americans. Do you think that Carlos and Smith should have raised an internal matter of American society in an international forum? Would you say that what they did was political? Why do you think Peter Norman, who was neither black nor American, joined in the gesture of protest? If you were in Norman's place, what would you do? The International Olympic Association held Carlos and Smith guilty of violating the Olympic spirit by making a political statement. Their medals were taken back home. They were subjected to a lot of criticism. Norman too suffered for his action and was not included in the Australian team for the next Olympic, but their action succeeded in gaining international attention for the civil rights movement in the US. Recently, the San Jose pronounced San Jose State University, of which they were former students, honored them and installed their statue in the university campus. When Norman died in 2006, Smith and Carlos were pallbearers at his funeral. Some Dalit groups decided to participate in the UN Conference Against Racism in Durban in 2001, demanding the inclusion of caste in the agenda of this conference. Here are 3 reactions to this move. Amandeep Kaur, a government official: our constitution declares caste discrimination to be illegal. If some caste discrimination continues, it is an internal matter. I am opposed to this being raised an international forum. Oinam, a socialist: I am opposed to this because caste and race are not similar divisions. Caste is a social division, while race is a biological one. Raising caste in this conference on racism would mean equating the two. Ashok, a Dalit activist: the argument about internal matter is a way of preventing open discussion of oppression and discrimination. Race is not purely biological. It is as much a legal and sociological category as caste. Caste discrimination must be raised in this conference. Which of 3 opinions do you agree with most and why? Differences, similarities, divisions. The athletes in the example above were responding to social divisions and social inequalities, but does that happen only in societies which have racial divisions? In the previous 2 chapters, we have already noted some other forms of social divisions. The examples of Belgium and Sri Lanka show both regional and social divisions. In the case of Belgium, we noted that people who live in different religions speak different languages. In Sri Lanka, we noted linguistic as well as religious differences. Thus, social diversity can take different forms in different societies. I met this group of girls from Pakistan and felt that I had more in common with them than many girls from other parts of my own country. Is this antisocial to feel so? Origins of social differences. These social differences are mostly based on accident of birth. Normally, we did not choose to belong to our community. We belong to it simply because we were born into it. We all experience social differences based on accident of birth in our everyday lives. People around us are male or female. They are all tall and short, have different kinds of complexions or have different physical abilities or disabilities. But all kinds of social differences are not based on accident of birth. Some of the differences are based on our choices. For example, some people are atheists. They don't believe in God or any religion. Some people choose to follow a religion other than the one in which they were born. Most of us choose what to study, which occupation to take up, and which games or cultural activities to take part in. All these lead to formation of social groups that are based on our choices. Every social differences does not lead to social division. Social differences divide similar people from one another, but they also unite very different people. People belonging to different social groups share differences and similarities cutting across the boundaries of their groups. In the instance above, Carlos and Smith were similar in one way. Both were African American and thus different from Norman, who was white, but they were also all similar in the other ways. They were all athletes who stood against racial discrimination. It is fairly common for people belonging to the same religion to feel that they do not belong to the same community because their caste or sect is very different. It is possible for people from different religions to have some caste and feel close to each other. Rich and poor persons from same family often do not keep close relations with each other for they feel they are very different. Thus, we all have more than one identity and can belong to more than one social group. We have different identities in different contexts. Overlapping and cross-cutting differences. Social division takes place when some social differences overlaps with other differences. The difference between the blacks and whites becomes a social division in the US because the blacks tend to be poor, homeless and discriminated against in our country. Daddies tend to be poor and landless. They often face discrimination and injustice. Situations of this kind produce social divisions when one kind of social differences becomes more important than the other and people start feeling that they belong to different communities. If social differences cross cut one another, it is difficult to pit one group of people against the other. It means that groups that share a common interest on one issue are likely to be in different sides on a different issue. Consider the cases of Northern Ireland and the Netherlands. Both are predominantly Christian but divided between Catholics and Protestants. In Northern Ireland, class and religions overlap with each other. If you are Catholic, you are also more likely to be poor, and you may have suffered a history of discrimination. In the Netherlands, class and religion tend to cut across each other. Catholics and Protestants are about equally likely to be poor or rich. The result is that Catholics and Protestants have had conflicts in Northern Ireland, while they do not do so in the Netherlands. Overlapping social differences create possibilities of deep social divisions and tensions. Cross-cutting social differences are easier to accommodate. Social divisions of one kind or another exist in most countries. It does not matter whether the country is small or big. India is a vast country with many communities. Belgium is a small country with many communities. Even those countries such as Germany and Sweden that were once highly homogeneous, are undergoing rapid change with influence of people from other parts of the world. Migrants bring with them their own culture and tend to form different social community. In this sense, most countries of the world are multicultural. Politics of social divisions. How do these social divisions affect politicians? What does politics do to these social divisions? At first sight, it would appear that the combination of politics and social divisions is very dangerous and explosive. Democracy involves competition among various political parties. Their competition tends to divide any society. If they start competing in terms of some existing social divisions, it can make social divisions into political divisions and lead to conflict, violence, or even disintegration of a country. This has happened in many countries. Range of outcomes. Take the case of Northern Ireland that we referred to above. This region of the United Kingdom has been for many years the site of a violent and bitter ethno-political conflict. Its population is divided into two major sects of Christianity. 53% are Protestants, while 44% are Roman Catholics. The Catholics were represented by nationalist parties who demanded that Northern Ireland be unified with the Republic of Ireland. A predominantly Catholic country, the Protestants were represented by Unionists who wanted to remain with the UK, which is predominantly Protestant. Hundreds of civilians, militants, and security forces were killed in the fight between Unionists and Nationalists and between the security forces of the UK and Nationalists. It was only in 1998 that the UK government and Nationalists